It's the Too Dumb to Quit podcast with Jeremy McCall. He's dumb, way too dumb to even quit.
Welcome back to 2Dumb2Quit. And it is, what's today? December 42nd, 2020, right? Okay. Look, I know it's 2 weeks into the new year, but from some of the difficulties out there in the world, you might think 2020 got an extended month. Thankfully, the 2Dumb2Quit podcast is here to save the world once again. Oh, shit. Regardless of what day it is, I'm glad you're back. Thanks for spending it with me. And I know right outside of all of our doors, there's a lot of challenges out there, a lot of difficulties, people feeling pitted against each other, politics pissing people off, one side versus the other, the economy, uncertainty in all of our livelihoods, our family businesses or our jobs, all seem like this looming, uncertain future. Many challenges, many difficulties lay out there. And, it can make our worlds seem a little hopeless. It can make it seem unsurmountable, not knowing what to do about it, feeling that you can't make a difference, feeling overwhelmed, kind of that old saying, well, there's just nothing I can do. And I focus a lot on controlling what you can. I talk about this a lot. Control what you can, saying fuck it to the rest of it. I pound that Stoic philosophy into the ground on here and in my daily life. But sometimes we're focusing, I think, on the wrong things that we need to change. Sometimes we're looking at a situation and say, well, I can't change this. I can't control it. So whatever. But I think the thing that needs to change sometimes is the thing we least like to look at. Sometimes if situations are shitty, it's not the situation that needs to change at all. It's us. We need to change ourselves. If we look at the world outside our door and it's out of our control, then we need to make ourselves better. And by doing that, we need to make our world better. And with that, other people around us will follow suit. To truly make it in our lives, it's just not enough to endure the hard times. We need to cultivate something bigger, something deeper. It's a lot like the muscles in our body. They're hardened and strengthened through damage. Every time you work out, you're tearing, you're ripping the muscles, which then creates muscle. It makes us stronger. Our vision, it makes our mind clear. Everything gets clear through damage, through hard times, overcoming obstacles. Marcus Aurelius, I talk about him a lot. It's somebody I really look to. He's a famous Roman emperor, a Stoic philosopher, and he wrote in his journal, that's now a book called Meditations. If you don't have it, it's a must-read. It's a great way to fuel your path. But he said that fire pays no attention to what's thrown in front of it. It turns whatever is in it into fuel. Think about forest fires rolling through. It doesn't, houses, cars, buildings, it doesn't matter. Whatever is in its way, it turns that into fuel for itself. And we have to be the fire that consumes all in our path and uses it for fuel. We have to be the fire. Don't be afraid of the challenges. They're preparing us for an uncertain future. They're preparing you to get through whatever is upcoming. Marcus Aurelius lived a life in almost constant physical pain. He wrote about it all the time, but constantly reminded himself through his journaling, you can endure this. You will get through this. Life, other people, work, a pandemic, it's gonna throw things in our path. Criticism, doubts, competition, difficulties, deceit, revenge. Our only option is to be the fire, to make ourselves better. You can't change those other things. By making ourselves better, you make the world around us better, which makes our world better. And in turn, people will make themselves better. So take all of those hardships and obstacles in our way and turn them into fuel like the forest fire does. Not paying attention to the odds. As stacked against us as they may seem, controlling what we can control, and sometimes realizing that it's us that we need to make better, to make our world better. And a great example of that is a special guest I'm going to have on the podcast today. A lot of times, I'll have a guest on who has overcome the hardest of situations, who has failed and struggled and clawed his way back up and failed again to find success. And they look back on the obstacles that stood in their way, how they got through them. And today, I've got a gentleman in the middle of the come up. He's at the beginning of this journey. He is one in the middle right now of overcoming obstacles that are in his way, much like Marcus Aurelius' fire that we talked about. He's battling so many things in and out of his control to chase a dream. So today we're talking to an up-and-coming NASCAR driver, a star in the making, and an incredible an incredibly driven human. He drives the number 26 Chevrolet Silverado for the GMS racing team in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. He is my friend, and he is a name that you are going to know. His name is Tyler Ankrum. Tyler, what is up, dude?
Hey, man. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, my God. I'm so glad you're on here. Probably pulled you off of doing a bunch of workout on your farm in North Carolina, I'm guessing.
No, actually, today, it's so dang cold. I don't know if I want to work, but luckily I've race season started January 1st, and I got all my projects done beforehand. So work on the farm, slowing down, and we're speeding up the gears and racing.
That's awesome. Well, let's go back to the beginning. I want to introduce you to everybody who's listening on here who might not know you. You're from San Bernardino, California, originally, born and raised, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And you're in North Carolina now, on the Ankrum Ranch, where I see. So I follow you pretty heavily on Instagram. So I see you out there building fences and doing the dirty work that happens out on the farm. And so take me back on how a hardworking kid like you, and I don't mean kid now, but I mean kid as you got started racing. How did racing get started for you? How do you get into it?
Well, my dad grew up racing quarter midgets as a kid, and I want to say I was about 6 years old, and I was on my grandpa's ranch, the Ricarosa, and I was sitting in my grandmother's lap, and I was flipping through family photos, and I saw a picture of my dad racing. And I think, as every 6-year-old kid does when he's 6, I said, I want one. Well, everyone just kind of laughed at me and said, oh, ha, 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 yeah, sure, we'll get you one. Well, I asked for 2 years, when are we going to go racing? When are we going to go racing? And finally, after 2 years, I beat my parents down enough to where on my 8th Christmas, I got my very first quarter midget. On my 9th birthday was my very first race.
Explain to people what quarter midgets are.
Yes.
Who might not know racing.
So quarter midget is essentially a quarter size of a sprint car. Looks like one. It's basically just a sprint car put in quarter size. And it's for kids from the ages of 5 to, I think the age limit is 16. That's like your way into motorsports. There's other ways like go-karting, bandoleros. There's a lot of different ways to get into racing. But for me, that was it.
How fast does a quarter midget car go?
Oh, it's like 60 miles an hour.
So
like that would be my biggest guess. Yeah.
You're 6 years old doing 60 miles an hour. And are these dirt tracks?
No. Well, so when I was getting out of quarter midgets, I was 13 years old, and they were starting to do dirt tracks in quarter midgets. But most of the time it was pavement. I grew up racing at Orange Show Speedway in San Bernardino, California. And actually that was the world's fastest quarter midget track. We did 4-second lap. We actually had they called it the Ernie Bose every year. And it was basically the world record race. And qualifying was a really big deal. For you to qualify, beat the track record, beat the world record for fastest quarter midget lap. It was a really big deal.
So you're 6 years old getting into quarter midgets. What's the next step as you go? Because you're 19 years old now and you're racing NASCAR now. Mm-hmm. Explain how you go from a 6-year-old in quarter midgets working your way up to Camping World Series.
I really started heavily getting into racing when I was 9, and I raced quarter midgets all the way up to the age of 13. And we figured it was time to make the jump. We'd pretty much gone everywhere racing quarter midget. I had gone to 36 different states, raced all over the country. I had a lot of accolades, a lot of championships. Actually, I was the first driver in quarter midget racing to win 4 championships in a single year. Wow. Still hold that record, actually, which blows my mind. I would have thought it would come along by now, but I from the age of 13, I got in the pavement midget for about a year. Through quarter midget racing, I become friends with Todd Gilliland and David Gilliland. We got out of quarter midget racing, and he went late model racing, and I went open wheel midget racing. I was actually getting ready to go dirt racing, but Dave Gilliland was at my house he was still cup racing in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, and he asked me what I want to do with the rest of my life, and I looked at him like he was stupid. I said, "What do you mean what I want to do? I want to do what you do. You're like, NASCAR Cup racing is a dream."
Yeah.
And my dad knew nothing about stock car racing. Everything that he knew about racing, I knew, because we learned together, growing together in quarter midgets and midgets. So Dave Gillen helped me get started in late model stock car. I started short track racing with Dave Gillen at DGR. Parted our own ways. My dad and I started our own super late model team, had our own team, raced that for about 2 years, and actually went to go back racing for David at DGR Crosley in the Canaan car. I won the Canaan East Championship with David, DGR Crosley. And the very next year, I got in a truck, won my first race of DGR. Raced last year, GMS, and here we are this year.
Being so early in your racing career, I know that there's a lot of obstacles when it comes to, you've been through all of them, and that's really what this podcast is about. It's being too dumb to quit, pushing through the obstacles. And so, like I said earlier, most of the time we're talking to somebody who has done it and is looking back. The exciting thing for me is I'm talking to somebody who's in the middle of it and is looking forward, which is such an exciting thing. You had to deal with obstacles even just based on your age, right? I mean, what were the restrictions for you going into NASCAR being such a young driver?
A lot of NASCAR's age restrictions is mostly just based off the insurance. So if you're under 18, you can't race on the 1.5 mile tracks, anything over 1.25 miles, just because of insurance policies. They won't allow you to race on those big tracks. And same thing with the K&N series. If you're under 16, there are certain races you can't racetracks you can't race because of your age. So a lot of it is just preparation. The biggest thing with racing, or I think just in life in general, is constantly having to beat yourself. It's constantly having to improve yourself. When I talk to people about my regimen or what I do on a daily basis, it's like it is purely making sure I beat myself tomorrow of who I was yesterday. For me with racing, there's so many more things that are out of your control that you have to be able to control and do perfectly of what you can't control, which in racing, that's pit road, that's your restarts, that's the way you go through the gears on a restart, not spinning your tires, getting to the box really hard and fast, leaving the box fast, 0 mistakes. People used to always ask me, what was my goal in racing? My goal was racing was always win the pole, lead every single lap, and win the race. Well, if you take a step back and look at it, what does that take to win the pole, lead every single lap, and win the race? Well, it takes perfection. The real answer to what is your goal in racing is I want to race a perfect race every single time.
But there is no perfect race.
But there is no perfect race because there's so many parts and pieces and people and other factors that go into it. It constantly changes. You can go from one lap to the next, and your idea of the way you should attack the racetrack, attack a corner, changes because there's so many variables and so many things change.
I think that's what's so special about you. From the minute I met you, you have an old soul perspective because the things that you're talking about in racing really correlate with life. The only things that you can control is your wheel. It's the 4 wheels under you, and it's the way that you come into things, spinning your tires, right? And how many times do people do that in their daily life of spinning their tires in something and getting the same result over and over and over? But that's what I love about you and your family, because there is no entitlement with you. You're 19 years old, and I think you hear a lot of people talking about the next generation being a very entitled group of people, no work ethic. You're exactly the opposite of that. From the moment I met you, you're out working on the farm. From the moment I met your family and the values that your family has, it's really an amazing thing to see a guy at your age that having the perspective that you have, especially with some of the accomplishments you had early. You were talking about the K&N series, which you won the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East Championship in your rookie season. You became only the 6th driver in series history to win a championship and a Rookie of the Year in the same season. So having that experience and being able to keep a perspective like you have, it's really something, man. You should be really proud of that, and it's going to take you a long way. When you get back, like you said, racing season is back in full swing. What's a normal day when you get? I think people always wonder this. It's the same thing with musicians on tour. What does a day at the track look like for you from time, 6 a.m. on race day? What's that look like?
Well, before COVID screwed everything up, you pretty much had a full day at the racetrack. You got to the racetrack at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Practice was at 1 or 2, maybe even sometimes a 3-hour practice. So you spent an allocated amount of time practicing, and then you're done with debriefing with your crew chief and engineer. It was like, boom, straight to an autograph session. You go with all the drivers, and they have this row of tables set up. All of us drivers, all 32 of us, will go to an autograph session, and then you have time to chill out for about an hour or 2 before qualifying. Go qualify, do TV interviews, and then you have about another hour or 2 where you can chill out, hydrate, and then you go race. The days that get really drug out is when it's like an 8 or 9 o'clock race, and you got to sit there for 4 hours and just overthink everything.
With NASCAR, like everything, it's got its cliques, got its politics. What's been the most difficult thing for you coming into an organization like NASCAR, getting into this profession, chasing a dream? What's been the most difficult thing that you found, and how do you deal with that?
For me, probably the most difficult thing has been just social media, or just any kind of media in general. When I was a kid, maybe it's stage fright, but I had that really, really bad as a young kid coming into the sport. Cameras put in my face, or I was put on a stage, mentally I would just break down. And actually I had to get a speaking coach to help me out with tough questions. And I think for me, just overall, like growing up, getting into the sport, figuring out the way everything is changing, especially now. Back in the day, even as late as, the 2000s, when the sport was very rich, you wouldn't go to a team and say, hey, I want to come drive for you. I have X amount of dollars. A team would approach you and go, hey man, we're setting up this race team. Your sponsor is this. We have X amount of dollars. We're going to pay you this. You would shake hands and you would go racing. Times have completely changed. Well, now the drivers have to be the ones bringing the sponsorship and the money. And that was probably the biggest eye opener for me, because I always had an Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook growing up racing late models and K&N. But for me, it was like, I'm going to prove myself on the racetrack. I don't need to prove myself on social media. That's stupid. Figured out when I got into truck racing, that bit me in the rear end, because so much of sponsorship in today's world isn't driven from TV anymore. It's driven from social media.
Yeah.
Versus TV, it's there and it's gone.
Exactly,
and then
like the music.
I missed the first 3 races because I wasn't 18 yet.
Yeah.
And then I missed another 2 because we didn't have the funding to go racing. And God bless Railblaza DGR and for getting me through that year. But and God bless Liona for getting me through the past year. They've been a wonder to work with, and they're back on board full time this year.
Total different game, and you're right in the middle of it. And it's going to be really fun to watch your ascent, because there's a lot of good things coming your way. What do you do to clear your mind? What is your thing outside of racing?
For me, it's actually just more work.
Yeah. You're a worker.
Like after race day, like I'll take my Sunday to hang out with my friends. Monday, I just go back to work and I lose myself in the work. It would help as a form of meditation. I'll wake up Tuesday morning and I'll feel brand new. I'll feel motivated. I'll feel ready to pound the ground and go after it again.
Well, I can't speak highly enough about you, about your family, about your work ethic. The whole Ankrum family are absolutely incredible. I love tenacity. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen your work ethic. You got a big future in front of you, brother, and I'm excited to see what's coming up for you, not only in the racing world, but as a man, you're going to accomplish a lot of things. So thanks for being part of the old podcast today, pal, and excited to watch you race.
Thank you, man. I appreciate this a lot.
Big thanks to NASCAR Camping World Truck Series driver Tyler Ankrum. Check him out on Instagram at Tyler Ankrum 58. That's Tyler Ankrum 58 over there on the old Instagram. And follow him. Make sure you're following me as well on Instagram at McComb, or you can search Jeremy McComb. And also over at the official YouTube page, because we are uploading videos, new singles, new songs, stuff from the road. And it is youtube.com/official Jeremy McComb. Thanks for keeping up with the 2Dumb2Quit podcast. Make sure you're sharing it with your friends and neighbors if you're enjoying it. And be kind to each other out there. Keep pushing. Keep driving. Go out there and be the fire. Better yourself. Better your world. Small changes in our mind make big changes in our life. Can't wait to talk to y'all again next week. I've got a special guest coming up next week as well. So be kind to each other out there, and I'll talk to you soon.